Hi everyone and welcome back to this channel. So in this video I'm going to expand what we previously did and add some good page transition effects to our website. So if you haven't watched the previous videos, make sure to check them out. I have put the links in the description box below. So what we're gonna do here, for example, if you look at my website, my portfolio, you see that when I navigate to another page, like by clicking a link, you see this cool animation happening, and that's like a good page transition that we want to do something like that, not exactly like that, but at least something to start with, and like then you guys can explore more on your own time. Or like in this website, for example, I'm doing something similar but like in another way, like this, so it kind of shows the website visitors that we are actually going from one page to another, since like up here we don't see any changes. It's a good indication of like something's happening and like we are changing the page. We obviously see that like the new URL up here. The same thing here, like if even you use the back button here, that same thing is gonna happen, and you'll make sure that your user understands what's happening, and you will provide them with a good experience on your website. So before we get started, as you guys have seen on this channel, I am constantly publishing new videos to explain things that took me, like some of them, really a long time to learn, and I'm hoping to make it easier for you guys. So if you are new to this channel or you haven't done so, please make sure to hit the subscribe button below and turn the notifications on, so that you're basically notified every time I publish a new video. Okay, so first thing we're gonna do is to go to this GitHub repo. I'll put a link to this repo in the description of this video. This is where we ended up after we finished the part 2 of last video, where we basically incorporated some page transition functions, and now we are gonna build on top of that. Just click on this code here, download the zip file or clone it, and once that's done, you can open it in your IDE of choice. I have VS Code here as always, so I'm using that. The first thing we're gonna do is to npm install to make sure all our packages are installed. All these files and folder here, you see I have a video. I'll explain what they are all, and obviously this code is from the very latest video that I have, and I'm gonna put a link to that video too. Once this npm install is done, we have our packages installed. We're gonna do npm start to start our dev server, and that's again right here in our script. So not the JSON here, we have npm start, and that's our dev server. If we go to localhost 3000 here, this is where we left off basically. This is my home page. I click on about, we have animation out and then animation in the new page, and we see like the link up here is updated. We didn't like reload or load anything. We kind of like just fetched the new content of the new page and remove the old page. So that's how it's happening. Now we're going back to home, and the URL is also updated. What we're gonna do, we're gonna like add some kind of like a transition page or something that our user knows what just happened. So if I go back to my code here, first thing we're gonna do, we're gonna create a file under our partials folder. We're gonna call it transition.pug. And that's just going to have a class called transition. It's just basically transition, and then it's just basically a simple page, just one class. And then what we are gonna do is go to our styles, and I am going to actually create a new folder here, components, and I am going to create a new file here. We call this transition.scss. Just some quick scss I will be adding here. So basically we want to have to cover our whole view height. So I have height of 100 view height, and then I have 100% width. And this needs to be a fixed page, and top and left of 0. I'm giving it a background color. Again, like I'm gonna do like real quick just easy stuff here, and then you guys will be able to take it a step further and do what you want to do. I'm just like showing how the idea works. And then I'm gonna give it a z index of 1 so that it's on top of the other content of my website. And the next thing we need to do is to actually include that in our index.pug file, and I'm gonna just do include partials, and that should be transition, if I spell it right. Transition. Okay, so I added this one. I'm gonna save it here, and the next thing we need to actually add this transition as CSS to our index.scss file. So to do that, I'm just gonna add it here, and we are good now. If I save my index.scss, now you can see I have that transition screen right here on top of everything, and that's what I just did and wanted. So but we actually need to move it outside the screen, and then when we do our transition animation, we'll bring it in and then like take it out back again. So I am going to use transform translate here to move it outside the screen. What we can do is just put 100% to the right and 100% to the bottom, so it's like at the bottom right corner. But I normally want to do a little more to make sure that there's nothing in there, so I did like 120% for both. So it's now gonna be like outside the screen on the bottom right corner, and actually a little further down. So now we have this transition like page, and what we need to do is to write some JavaScript code to animate in the page, and then like animate it out when the transition is done. To do that, I'm going to define to make a new folder under my app folder. As you guys know, this app folder is the folder with all my front-end JavaScript. I'm gonna again to follow the trend here, I'm gonna name that components, and then I call the JavaScript file here transition.js. So this transition.js, again, it's gonna be like since we are doing object-oriented programming, I'm gonna like define the class here with the constructor. And let's go back to our main index.js file. This is our entry point to all our front-end JavaScript. You can see like I'm importing everything in this app here, app class, and then I'm doing like new app, and that's being called at the load time. If you don't know what this is, how this is working, again, I'll put a link to my original video when I like walk through you guys what these files and folders are. So here we need to also import that transition component. So what I'm gonna do is here, let's import that, and then I am going to create a new function inside my constructor and call it create transition. That looks good. Let's define that down here, and all we need to do is to basically make sure that we call that transition class here, and then I will save it as transition with this keyword, new transition. So we make sure that we call our transition. I can like put a console.log here, transition. Let's see what happens when we reload the page. So yeah, so that page, that JavaScript file is being called, and this test shows that's working. And the next thing I'm gonna do is basically, so the process is in this function here, this async function here, this is where we take care of all the transition, and I've explained everything in my previous videos, so if you haven't watched them, please go look at them and just make sure you understand everything, and then come back here. But just to explain real quick, we are animating out our page. If we are first fetching the new URL, then if it's okay, we get the 200 response, we are going to animate out the current content on the page, and then we will basically add the content of the new fetched URL instead of the old content, and we kind of like animate it in, and then that's what's happening in our website here. So this is like, if we click on about, animate everything out, and then I'll go to about and animate everything in on the about page. So if we want to add a transition, everything should be added in this function also. So we have two functions in our transition. One we're gonna call it show, and the other one we're gonna call it hide. And what these two are gonna do is basically when I call show, that means, hey, bring in the transition, animate it in, and then when I hide, call the hide function, we are just like animating the transition like page out, and we are on the new, we just display the new content. And then if I want to do that again for animation stuff here, we're gonna use GreenSock library GSAP, as I briefly introduced it in my previous video. It's like a great animation library, and we will be using it a lot in other videos as well. Let's see, so for the show function, what I want to do is actually first of all, I would like to do some console logs. I want to say, okay, here is transition show, and then we're gonna put here transition hide. Just to keep track of everything, I like to add these console.logs, and then since we need to make sure the transition, like the show transition animation, is completely done, and then we move to the hide, and then we like show the new page, we will need to return a promise here. And if you don't know what promises are, I will put a link in this under description of this video. Basically, that's what we want to do. We want to know that the process is completed and this my async operation is done, and then move on to the next step. And then so basically we have this page here. I'm gonna click on this about. We're gonna animate out everything, then we're gonna show the transition and then hide it, and then we want to show the new page, animate the new page in. So that's the process, and that's why we need to like write promises, so to make sure that every step is completely done, and then we move on to the next. And this is how we do that resolve. And then I am going to add my GSAP transition here. As I mentioned in the previous video of mine, we have different types of animation: to, from, and like from to. Right now let's do GSAP 2. What I'm doing here is so my original state in the transition is that I have moved it 120% to right and bottom of the page, so it's now outside of the viewport. And then what I'm trying to do here is to, when I show the transition, I'll bring it to like the original position that I want to, like the X and Y of 0. And then after that, when I will hide it, I will move it, let's say, to the original position, or we can like move them to the top left outside of the screen. So the idea is just to like move it outside of the screen, and that's what I'm doing here. We'll see there's a problem with this process here, but we'll see why. I'm doing it first to show you what's happening, and then we'll fix it. The other thing I need to add in my index.js file, as I mentioned, all the transition is happening inside this function. So what I need to do is to make sure that I will call the transition show and hide in the proper locations here. So I want to animate out. First I want to animate out my current page, as I explained like a minute ago. Then I want to show the transition, and then I am going to hide the transition, and after that I will just add the new content and animate everything in. We can also actually add an await here for animating. This is not needed, but just to follow the pattern here. The other thing we might need to do is, well, no, not necessarily. Since I put the transition inside the 200, then we don't have anything outside. So if for some reason our status is not 200, it's not gonna show the transition at all. We might want to do that if you want to, but here I'm just like gonna keep it this way. So if I save this and go back here, so I have my first about page here. If I do go back to home, animate it out, and then animating in everything. Okay, so and we do see transition show and hide, so that is working. Let's see, everything should be fine here. For animating out, again, one thing probably we need to fix here is that for animation out, we better use the expo.in because it just like disappeared really fast. By the way, I'll put a link to the GSock eases. So if you go to the docs and search for eases, they have like a visualizer here, and you can like see what's in, what's out. You can change the type and like pick whatever you want. Right now I'm just using expo in and out, so that would be like here, fast at the beginning and then slow at the end is out, and then in is kind of the opposite, slow and then fast. And that should be what we have right now. So we are animating out that page, fast and slow, slow and fast, and then we are animating in. But if I do it again, remember first time from the bottom right corner and then to the left, top left corner. But now it's in the top left corner, so that's what's gonna happen. It's just gonna come down and right and then back up and left, and that's basically because we transformed the xy to the negative after the first hide, and now it's up there, and then we need to, and then next time we show it, we bring it to 0 and 0, it's gonna come from the top left. So the first time, if I like redo this, and the first time originally it's down bottom right, so it's gonna appear from there. And then for the next transition, it's gonna come from up there and go back up there, because after the first transition we sent it to a top left corner. So to fix that, I'm actually gonna use from to. So let's see. Okay, so for that, I'm gonna replace this first show, the GSAP section here, with from to. So I am always bringing it from the bottom right corner where it originally is, and then to the 0 and 0. So no matter what I do in the height part, it's always gonna come from the bottom right corner and to the 0, 0 point. So that's why I added that. And I do also want to add this console.log here to make sure, so once the transition show is completed, I want to see that's happening. This way I can see the process, like how this works. Let me do the same thing for uncomplete of the height section. I'm just gonna bring a piece of code from my other window here. So right here, I could have just copied that one, but I guess I was too lazy. Anyway, transition height is complete, and then we mark it as resolved, if you will. So let's see. Okay, now if we go back here, I have about, I click that, transition show complete, transition height complete. Now the next time it's again gonna come from here because we used from to. So you can like do these console logs and like make sure everything is happening as you want to happen. So that is basically what I was gonna talk about. We have like all the steps as we wanted. First, we wanted to animate out, then we bring the transition, then hide the transition, and then animate in the rest of the the following URL's content. You can get creative here, so there's a lot of things you can do. Basically, what you do with GSAP is you are targeting some CSS property and then like playing with that. You can like do crazy stuff. For example, for my website, I am like using some math sign functions to give it like some curve feeling and like different speeds in different locations of the page. You can do all those things. I show you another example that I've already basically prepared. We can change our transition pog to like 2 sections of each like 50 viewport high, and so I need to update my CSS also. I'm just copying the code for sample code. Where is my there? So we can like so what I'm doing here is I have like 2 transition sections and I have like 50 viewport height for each of them. Still the same color. You can like change colors and like play with all those things even with GSAP. And then in my transition.js, what I'm gonna do is actually I am going to replace but the code that I have for just one transition and bring in another one with 2 classes, transition 1 and transition 2, and I am using a timeline just to add them like after each other. I have 2 from 2s. One is for the transition 1 class and the other one is for transition 2 class. Here I have like them each half coming from different parts of the screen. Like one is gonna come from the bottom right, the other one is gonna come from the top left. And then when I'm hiding, again, you can like play with this also. But when I'm hiding, I am going to do another timeline here, and I have like a 2 for each transition. I can like take them back only on the X axis, not doing like a top left, just like left and right, and do that. Let's see how it's gonna look like if I've done things correctly. If I do this, you can see like this is first half, this is the second half, and then they will disappear to different directions and I showed a new one. So one thing that was off a little bit is that these 2 halves, they come like the second one comes after the first one and then the second one disappears after the first one disappears. In GSAP we have 2 ways to fix that. If we want this second animation to start at the same time as the first animation, we can add this like this smaller than sign, and that basically makes sure that the second animation starts at the same time as the first one. The other way is to just basically add a 0. That means like with 0 delay compared to the previous animation, you should start this one too. So if we do that, now those 2 animations are gonna start at the same time. So you can see like we have this and then we have them going away. So this is just another idea. Obviously, like if you have better ideas, and I'm sure you have, so explore Make sure you can play with different CSS properties. Just don't limit yourself to like X and Y coordinates. Just do anything that you think of. Play with that, and you can make changes here. I always found it helpful if I console.log stuff. It makes me see what exactly is happening. So I think that's about it. I will post the final code on GitHub, and also add a link to that in the description of this video. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to like it, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn the notification bell on. Also, if you have any questions or suggestions, please make sure to leave a comment in the comment box below, and I'll make sure to get back to you as soon as possible. Alright, that's all. I hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you guys soon.